Hello, everybody. I'm Tracy Cornett. Thank you for joining us today on Plugged Into DFW. Transitioning from the fields of combat to everyday civilian life can be tough. Any service member would probably tell you that. But some have found that women returning home face a different set of challenges than their male counterparts. An organization based here in North Texas is trying to make the monumental move a little bit easier. Andrea Lucia has the story.
There are stereotypes of what a war veteran looks like. Holly Finnessy fits none of them.
How old are you? 24. I've heard comments like, you're too young to be a veteran. It's like, yeah, well, there's a lot of us out there that are pretty young.
Enlisting just out of high school, Holly spent 5.5 years in the U.S. Navy. 7 months of that treating wounded soldiers at a combat hospital in Afghanistan.
Some of them that we just couldn't save, and it's hard to think about things like that.
In 2010, she left the service with dreams of starting a family. Instead, she found a whole new battle.
I felt lost.
Holly represents a growing population of veterans, the young and female. Here in Fort Worth, Michelle Rosales-Newbold works for Grace After Fire, an organization helping women readjust to life outside the military.
The model is an older male. You know, if you go to the VA, again, a lot of what you'll find is, are you the spouse? Are you the dependent? They don't realize that, no, I'm in fact the veteran.
With the recent exodus from Iraq, Newbold expects to see a surge in the number of women veterans.
Now need some type of assistance to get back into society.
And women veterans, it turns out, have issues all their own. Studies show they're twice as likely as civilian women to be unemployed, and almost 3 times as likely to commit suicide. As many as 1 in 5 may have suffered sexual assault, and many, like Holly, who've dated fellow service members, become victims of domestic violence.
Never in my whole life would I ever imagine that somebody that I loved would talk to me a certain way.
Founded by women veterans, Grace After Fire has built a network of organizations to meet their special needs.
There's a lot of individuals that want to help.
Holly found a support group to help her deal with her abusive relationship.
If it wasn't for them, really, I probably would still be hanging on to that old relationship.
Most importantly, though, she now knows she's not alone. Andrea Lucia, CBS 11 News.
Joining us now is Kim Olson, CEO and president of Grace After Fire, but also a retired colonel, so it's Colonel Olson from the U.S. Air Force. We want to thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your service.
You are more than welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well,
Tracy.
25 years in the Air Force. You were part of the first generation of female military pilots, we understand, and you've written about that in a book.
I have.
We're going to get to that book in just a moment.
All right.
But first, I really want to, here's the book, just for folks at home. I want to get to what we just saw in that story and some of the issues that female veterans in particular face. And I'm really stunned by the suicide rate being 3 times higher, especially.
Well, I think Michelle alluded to it in the beginning of the film, is that people don't see women as veterans. And so if you don't have a view that there are young women coming back who've done many of the things that our male veterans have done, then they don't seem to want to help them. And the protocols there to help women overcome some of the trauma that they've experienced just haven't been flushed out yet by those large bureaucracies that are supposed to be set up to support our veterans.
Since here you are leading the way in this initiative, did you suffer from any of the things that Michelle says she suffered from here?
Well, let's just put it this way. No one goes to war and comes back the same. I think war brings out the best of humanity, and it can bring out the worst of humanity. And those of us that have experienced come back a changed person. And your challenge is how do you take some of those things that you've seen and not let it own you, and move through life and then reintegrate back into your community, your family, and back into the workplace.
Well, how have you done it? I mean, you've got a couple of kids. Tell us about your family and how you've made that transition.
Well, one of the things we found in working with women vets, especially in the last year or so, we've worked with about 3,000 women veterans and their families, is that we have found that the greater the support structure around the veteran, the quicker they'll recover from whatever happened to them in Iraq or Afghanistan or even just in military service, and the faster you can get to the women veteran or to the veteran themselves, the quicker their recovery time will be. So I have a great sense of urgency that those of us with gray hair or chemically altered gray hair open the doors for women in these non-traditional career fields. But it's also our job to make sure that if you're going to do things like go into harm's way, go into combat, wear the uniform, that there better be a support structure underneath them when they come back from serving their nation. Yeah.
So you're providing that support system. You had your own support system in your own family.
Correct.
Right. So now you're this extended family for so many of these veterans.
Exactly. I mean, the Veteran Corps is a pretty small community, and it's actually much smaller where the women veteran is concerned. And so what we'd like to do is reach out to women veterans that are out there and say, hey, look, you're not alone. There are women that have gone through similar things that you've gone through, and you'll hear from some of them later on, and that we can help, and you can make it through whatever it is you experienced in uniform service or when you deployed. But the most important thing is to ensure women veterans that they can help themselves. That if you get some of the tools, if you get some stuff, some life skills, that you can push yourself through this. Because look, you made it through basic training, you made it through your deployment, you made it through all the tech training that the military made you do. You can make it through the transition piece back into your community.
Yeah, you can do this.
Absolutely.
You're going to be okay on the other
Absolutely.
end.
Absolutely.
You just need a little bit of education and clearly some support back there. I'm going to go ahead and share the statistic. Women make up 11% of our military veterans. 60% of them are under the age of 30 with young children at home. Okay, young children at home. So what are some of the specific issues that those women veterans need help with that you're able to provide?
Well, I'll just tell you that women kind of have a bad habit of taking care of everyone else first and themselves last. And women veterans are no different. So they deploy for 18 months, they miss their family, they come home back into the home structure, and they are supposed to be like a light switch and turn on, become the mom, become the wife, become the provider, and run the household again. And the one thing we help women veterans do, and Stacy will talk about this with our table talk, is give themselves space in which to reintegrate back into the family unit, to reintegrate back into the employment world, to reintegrate back into the respective communities. And women sometimes don't do that. And what the most interesting stat we have is on our online system at graceafterfire.org. We find that most women come up online at about 10 o'clock at night. And the reason is why? Because he's in front of the TV watching the news and the kids are finally in bed. So that's about the only time she's got space in her life to take care of herself. And what we try to encourage women to do is to make space in their life to heal from whatever.
Love it. Okay, you know, we didn't get to the book, so we're going to have to do that when we come back, as well as meet the other guests we have here. Wonderful website, you alluded to this, list of resources for veterans. What are some of the resources you can find? You need to call that number, 800-362-6477, or check out Grace After Fire. We're going to leave this on for just a moment here. graceafterfire.org, Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 are the hours where you can call. Wealth of information and links on that website. Check that out. We also want to give you a really important phone number for those of you who may be struggling or battling thoughts of suicide. Veteran Suicide Prevention Lifeline. There's the number, 800-273-TALK, 800-273-8255, and then press 1. Now, coming up, we will have much more with Colonel Olson and 2 more veterans joining us to share their stories. Plus, we're going to talk about the peer-to-peer support system designed specifically for women veterans. Next.
It's not about stagnating in whatever happens to you in the past.
I didn't realize I was a veteran, and I didn't even know what that meant. I started Googling Veterans Day, and it would come up with YouTube videos, and when you go and you watch them, it says, "Great job, boys," and it's all about men. Well, you're going, well, I'm a female veteran, and then I'm an airman. Do we not have a place, too?
Today we're talking about female veterans and the steps they must take after leaving the armed forces and the unique experience that is. Welcome back to Plugged Into DFW. Joining us once again, Colonel Kim Olson, CEO and President of Grace After Fire. We also have Stacy Keat with us, who, Color Me Camo is your baby, right? We're going to get to that in just a moment, as well as Sgt Theresa Hollingsworth. Thank you all for being here. Quite a team. And you all are a team. Do you not consider yourself one?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, Stacey, let's start with you. 12 years in the Army National Guard, deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom from 2005 to 2006. What was it like for you coming back to civilian life, especially since you had a young child at home?
It was definitely a struggle for me. I left when my son was 15 months old. I was gone for almost 16 months. So, you know, he was on that cusp of turning 3. My husband was on a stateside mission at the time. He's in the Guard as well. And it was a lot of struggling with guilt, you know, plus everything that had happened during my deployment, and really struggling with the fact that I felt like a bad mom because I didn't know my child anymore. You know, when we first got back and went out to eat, we went to a restaurant, and my mother-in-law was with us, and the hostess asked me, "Oh, would you like a high chair or a booster seat?" Blank. I was like, I don't know, I was in panic mode, and I looked to her, and she saved me. You know, we'll take a high chair, because I didn't know what my own child needed to sit in. And those are the most basic things as a mom that you should know about your child.
I mean, your child changes in a week, let alone 16 months.
Right.
Yeah, so your organization or your effort, tell us about Color Me Camo and what that's all about.
Absolutely. Tabletop Color Me Camo is structured specifically for the woman veteran. It covers every aspect of experiences that she may have had during military service, deployments, and even coming back. And the key thing is getting them together, giving them a little bit of education about what they're experiencing, and it brings them in a group of women that have had similar experiences, and it allows them to build relationships so that they have a structure there for them in their community, because a lot come back and they don't have the family support that they need. So having those women relationships in their community is so important.
And was that born of your feelings of ineptitude when you came back, or whatever that is, the guilt, as you mentioned, of not knowing your child, that you just didn't want other women to feel this way?
Right, and there was a lot of the women veterans here at Grace that we felt that there could be more for the women veterans that are out there. And so we brought our experiences into this program to try to help others.
All right, well, let's go to Sgt Theresa Hollingsworth now. Many different roles in the military, deployments here and there. You're still in the reserve, so this is a part of your life cycle, in and out, right?
Yes.
What's been the most challenging aspect of that for you, and what are you able then to bring to other women who are in similar situations and choices?
Well, it's a lot of experience. It's a lot of years of going through different phases of the military. The military has made a lot of adjustments recently. But it is a difficult, you're first of all in a role that's mostly shared by men. So I've been a combat engineer, I've been military police, psychological operations, civil affairs, quartermaster, and airborne. And one of the biggest benefits I can find to helping other women is showing them how they can still be women and still make connections with each other the same way that the men do. Now, I grew up a Navy dependent, so I watched my mom and the family support my father in his service, and I saw how important it was for him when he came back to go through the things that we go through when we come back. The support of your family is awesome, and that's what Grace After Fire is doing. It's helping these women learn how to utilize those resources that their family or people who've been there before them can do to help them out.
So I had great that help.
Yes, I had great mentors while I went through all of my training, all of my transitions, deployments overseas, and that type of thing. And that's what we want to be for the other women.
You touched on the connections, allowing you to have female connections in the military, because you do see the tough side, you know, and you wonder, where is that kinder, gentler woman allowed to come in, and how do you balance that all out? Is that a common struggle, especially post-service?
Well, I think so. I think what happens is, although the military is a great institution, it doesn't really embrace, you know, feminine qualities. They don't run around and say, "Oh, you look really cute in those combat boots." I mean, that's just not something we'd say to one another.
Yes.
So a lot of times women come back from military service, and it's a struggle to re-identify themselves as women.
It's like culture shock.
Exactly. And so we work with them. I mean, simple things like, how do you dress? Because the military tells you what to wear and when to wear it and all these things. So we help women kind of find their feminine qualities, which are powerful qualities and are needed by this nation. I mean, 51% of us are female, and the nation needs women's inputs into our world today. And so we hopefully help women move from all those great skill sets they learned in the military, capitalize on them, but yet also embrace their feminine qualities, which are just as important.
But you really emphasize getting back to work and finding jobs for these women, okay? Let's talk about how critical that is. Who wants to speak to that and how you all are able to help women get a second job after their service?
Well, Teresa's in that world right now, but I'll just say we know from work that work makes warriors well. And the quicker you get back to work, the quicker you get back to feeling as if you're contributing to your family, to your community, to yourself, the better it is for you in cycling.
Work makes everyone well, it seems.
I think it
you
does,
know,
it is.
that's why post-retirement, you're still staying busy.
Yeah. I didn't have time to work in my retirement.
No, it really does. Let's talk about your book, if you don't mind, Colonel Olson. Tell us the story and really the whole purpose behind this.
Well, first of all, I think it's really important that American women capture their own history, whether you're in journalism, whether you're in medical field, law, or even the military. I think it's important that we write our own history because somebody else will write it for us. So that's number one. Number two, writing the book was actually quite cathartic. It helped me to get out what I saw in combat, what I experienced as a very senior military member, and I can't imagine how folks like Stacy handled it because I had tons of experience under my belt, and yet I struggled a bit transitioning from Iraq back to the United States. So it helped to get out in what was in my head onto paper. And then it has an impact all into its own. People read it and they think, oh my gosh, I felt that way too, or oh, you're talking to me, or oh, thank goodness I'm not, you know, crazy because I felt those same things. So I think it's important that we all capture our own history, but especially as women. But the book, you know, it's obviously available on Amazon. All the proceeds for it goes to help women veterans today.
Wonderful. And I know Grace Under Fire has partnered with several national companies focused on hiring women veterans. We've talked about why that's so important. Do you want to kind of give a shout out to some of these companies who are helping you and really helping women then?
Well, absolutely. Count Me In is one of the organizations. Business and Professional Women's is another organization. Capital One underwrites a lot of the things. We get a lot of support here from some wonderful corporations right here in our own backyard in Fort Worth. And it's not just so important that they give you monetary help, is that they hire you.
Because, they get the job done.
Exactly. Vets make your bottom line better. So if you want to help a vet, hire one. That's what I say.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. Thank you very much for sharing your stories, ladies, and we will be right back. One of the powerful public service announcements for Grace After Fire. That's what we're talking about today here on Plugged Into DFW. According to the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, Texas has the second largest population of veterans. The number is growing as well. Grace After Fire here with us today. Three guests representing this organization, Stacy and Sgt Theresa. Let's talk to both of you and what specific skills you all are teaching here with Grace After Fire.
Okay, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier about Table Talk, that's our peer program for women veterans, and we provide a safe place for them to come. Women veterans facilitate our programs. They may need specific resources. We can provide those to them at the group. Theresa is a perfect example of someone that is utilizing her time well. She is currently unemployed, and she facilitates peer groups for women veterans.
So here, Sgt Theresa Hollingsworth, you've learned, tell us some of what you've learned specifically and now what you're sharing with others.
Oh, thank you very much. Basically, Grace After Fire has given me the conduit to reach out to other women and to help myself with the knowledge, the skills that we learned. Well, you know, I've done and accomplished so many things in the military. So I can utilize the same things that the military taught me and my sisters in the military to help myself now to, you know, seek out support groups, seek out additional help getting a job or different things that we need as like civilian clothes or
clothing, interview skills,
makeup skills are not really taught in the military, other than camo.
So that doesn't work too well when you're going out on the office job interview.
And in the military, you're taught to blend in with the trees. You know, our camo was camouflage, and our duties were to work as a team and work flawlessly as a team and disappear into our membership to be one united force where we all, nobody picked on who was taller, shorter, who was a girl, who was a guy. We all worked together and we accomplished amazing goals.
So to sell yourself as an individual is challenging.
It's a new
yeah,
thing.
it's a whole new skill set and a whole new mentality, and that's what Grace After Fire is all about, being that support system to teach and encourage and get people like you out in the workforce and working again in civilian life. I think we've got it. I hope we have, and I hope we've touched a lot of lives out there by sharing this and all that you have to offer. Dallas is the mecca, I guess, of this organization, and it's going across the country, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're down in Houston, San Antonio, North Dallas, and down in Austin.
Yeah, so reach out to it. I know there's a big family event coming up, so get to graceafterfire.org for more information on that. I want to thank you all so very much for being here and sharing your stories.
Thanks for having us, Tracy.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Before we go, Colonel Olson, tell us about this Women's Veterans Family Retreat.
Absolutely. On March the 22nd, during Women Veterans History Month, we have a retreat, a family retreat in Houston. And one thing we learned, if you want to bring women vets to the table, you got to include their families, because women come as a family unit.
Well, this is the way to touch and feel what Grace After Fire is all about. For more information, here's that contact website and phone number again, 1-800-362-6477. Also want to mention Colonel Kim Olson's book, Iraq and Back, Inside the War to Win the Peace, which is also raising funds to help the effort there at Grace After Fire. Thanks to all of you for the work you are doing.
Our pleasure. Our
and
pleasure.
for your service. And best of luck to you on the job search. We are pulling for you, Sergeant Hollingsworth. All right, if you want any more information, then make sure you go to our website, and we will see you next time for Plugged Into DFW.